Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. So, if I recall, we finished the 19th chapter last week. Is that correct?
Yes,
Very subtle stuff. Certainly worth reviewing if you have questions about it. I highly, highly recommend that you do that. So what page are we on? And will you help us out with the beginning of chapter 20, please, Ganesh? I think you're muted.
Yeah. Vimshodhyayah. Atra te vartashishyami pura vrittam shrunushva tat pura brahma sabha madhye satyaloke pipavane jnana prasanga sambhuta sukshma vimarshanah. Here, I shall relate an old occurrence. Hear that. Formerly, there arose an argument connected with knowledge, which was an extremely subtle discussion in the court of Brahma, the creator, in the extremely sacred world of Satyaloka.
So this again is a literary device. The idea is they're in this place called Satyaloka, the abode of truth, and Brahma is there as a Raja, as a king, And in the court, there's going to be a subtle argument, a discussion. Let's see what it is. Going on.
Sanakadya Vasishtha cha Pulastya Pulaha Krituhu Bhruguratri Rashingrascha Pracheta Naradastatha Chavano Vamadevascha Vishvamitro Gautamaha Shukra Parasharo Vyasaha Kanvakashyapa Evacha
So everybody's there. Go ahead.
Daksha Sumantu Shangascha Likhato Devalopicha Eva Manyershi Gana Rajarshi Prabara Api Sarve Samuditastatra Brahma Satre Mahattare. There, in the very great sacrificial session connected with the exposition of knowledge, groups of sages, most distinguished, kindly sages, and others also were all assembled, such as Sanaka and others, Vasishtha, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhrigu, Atri, Angiras, Prachetas, Narada, Chavana, Vamadeva, Vishwamitra, Gautama, Shukra, Parashara, Vyasa, Kanva, Kashyapa, Daksha, Sumantu, Shankha, Likhita, and Devala.
So these are all great saints and sages from our mythology, those who have had great works of wisdom attributed to them. Many of them have different approaches, but all are known as men of great wisdom, of self-realization. Let's see what happens. Going on.
Mimamsam Chakruratyuchaihi Sukshmat Sukshmanirupanaihi Brahmanam Tatra Aprichuhu Vishaye Sarva Evate. They made an investigation very intensely by very subtly searching. All those sages there asked Brahma.
So they have subtle questions about truth. Of course, go to the Creator God Himself, Brahma. Let's see what they ask. Going on.
Bhagavan Jnanino Loke Vayam Jnata Paravaraha Tesham No Vividha Bhati Sthiti Prakriti Bhedatah. Lord, we are sages in the world who have known the all-including knowledge. On account of the difference in nature, our state appears diverse.
So, riffing on the last chapter, where we had these different stages of experience of men and women of wisdom. Remember, there was the lowest, whose wisdom is tenuous, and when they lose knowledge of the self, they suffer like ordinary people and they wake up. It's what I call the yo-yo stage. Come in and out, you come in and out. Then second level of jnana, those, because they've had a lot of desire, have done an enormous amount of tapas and have destroyed the mind. The end result is they are seen to be fond of samadhi. And then what this scripture calls the highest, those who are able to see the dreamlike nature of the phenomenal world and therefore the removal of the mind is not necessary. And they are seen to be jnanis who have diverse mind, diverse activities, very active in the world. So all these sages are seen to be quite different. Which is the best among them? Do some only have partial knowledge of the self? Is there somebody more realized than this? Let's see what happens.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
So this is more like a literary device, a question about what the scripture is doing right now. There are all of these sages who are asking a question to Brahma, the creator, but maybe there is something that I'm missing. It seems it's as though you go to a young woman who's recently given birth to a baby, and you ask the mother the questions about the anatomy of the baby, as though the mother would know. So what's the role of Brahma here, really?
What I would recommend you do is put your doubt on the shelf and let's move on through the conversation. This is the setup, Uday.
Okay.
We're just setting up a literary situation in order to deal with some subtle notions. So we'll get to your question. Don't abandon it. Just put it on the shelf.
Okay.
All right. Going on.
केचित् सदा समाधिस्था केचन मीमांसने रताः अपरे भक्ति निर्मग्न कश्चान्ये कर्मसाश्रयाः. Some are always in samadhi, some are intent on investigation. Others are immersed in devotion to God, and others have actions as their resort.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood your question, Uday. They're going to Brahma, the creator, because he, being the origin of the whole universe, should have the answers to everything. Again, it's a literary device. Did that help?
Sure. I mean, we can go more into it later.
All right, going on.
Vyavahara parastveke bahir mukhanara iva teshu shreyan hi katama etanno vaktumarhasi swaswapaksham vayam vidmaha shreyam samiti vaividhe. Some are wholly engaged in works like men devoted to external things. Among them, who indeed is the best? Pray, tell us this. Brahma, we truly consider one's own state as the best.
So each of these Mahatmas thinks his own state is the best. Now, remember when we talked about the stages of jnanam as they're articulated in the 19th chapter? And just one of these God-shot coincidences, we happen to have gone through the 7 stages of knowledge in Yoga Vasishta, which has a completely different paradigm. So is Yoga Vasishta right, or is Tripura Rahasya right? Narada right, Bhrigu right, Vasishta right. Which one of these sages has it right? Let's find out. Going on.
Iti Krishto Vada Dhamma Matva Nashvasmatanasan Munindra Nahamapyeta Vedmi Sarvatmana Tatah Janiyadim Amartham Tu. जानीयादिममर्थं तु सर्वज्ञः परमेश्वरः तत्र यामोऽथ संपृष्टिम् इत्युक्त्वा तत्र तैर्ययो. Thus asked, Brahma, considering them as having no confidence in his words, said, Best of sages, I also do not know this entirely. The all-knowing Supreme Lord Shiva may know this subject. Therefore, we shall go there to ask him. Having spoken thus, he went there along with them, that is Sanaka and the other sages.
So this is funny. Most of us are very reluctant to let go of our firm convictions about spiritual matters, especially if they're rooted in our experience. So here Brahmaji says, they're not going to believe me no matter what I say. Let's go to Lord Shiva. He's the king of yogis. He'll be able to tell them better. So let's see what happens. Again, this is all literary. Going on.
Sangamya devadevesham Vishnuna bhisamagatam papracha rishimukhyanam prashnam tam loka sridvidihi. Meeting the Supreme Lord Shiva, who was associated with Lord Vishnu, the creator of the world, Brahma asked that question of the preeminent sages.
All right, well, going on. So they're now kicking it upstairs to Shiva and Vishnu. Going on.
Prashnam nishamya cha shivo nyatva vidhimanogatam matva nashva tamanasa rishim devo yachintyata. Rishim devo yachintayat. The god Shiva, having heard the question and having known what was in the mind of Brahma, and considering the sages as possessing minds which had no confidence in his words, thought as follows.
So Lord Shiva says, they're not going to believe me. Where can I send them to one that they will believe? Going on. You'll see the setup here. Remember, this is a Devi text. This is a Devi text, remember. Going on.
Kinchit uktam maya trapi vyartham eva bhaven nanu swapakshatvena janiyuhu rishayo shraddhaya yutah. Even a little uttered by me here would be only useless. The sages endowed with disbelief, may understand what I say with their own view.
Yes. So frequently when we hear a teaching, we interpret it through the tapestry, through the lens of our own mind and experience. So he's being very insightful, the Tattreya is, about human nature. When we read a text, we tend to interpret it how we want it to say. Let's see what happens. So Lord Shiva says, they're not going to believe me. Let's see where he sends them. Going on.
Iti matva pratyuvacha devadevo maheshwarah shrunudhvam munayo naham apyetad vedmi susphutam ato vidyam bhagavati dhyayama parameshwarim tatprasada tat prasadan nigudhartham api vidmastatah param. Thinking thus, the great god Shiva replied, "Hear, sages, even I do not know this clearly. Therefore, we shall meditate on the supreme goddess, the divine Vidya or knowledge. After that, we shall know even the hidden meaning through her grace."
So here, Sri Vidya, the goddess herself, Tripuri. Again, this is a feminist scripture, a Devi scripture. So no form of God are we going to worship for the ultimate truth, but consciousness itself, which in this text we have used the name Tripuri, Ishwari, great goddess herself. Now, the hidden meaning here is, where do we go for ultimate truth? Not to a form of God, but to the self itself. That is ultimately the truth. So again, this is done as a literary tale to explain this. Going on.
Ityukta munayas sarve vidhi Vishnu Shivai saha tadhyur vidyam maheshani Tripuram chicharirini evam sarvaira vidhyat evam sarvaira vidhyata Tripura chicharirini avirasi chidakasham aishab avirashi avirasi chidakasha mai shabdamai para. Thus told, all the sages, along with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, meditated on Vidya, or knowledge, who is the great goddess Tripura, consciousness embodied. Thus meditated upon by all, the supreme Tripura, who is consciousness embodied, really consisting of the space of consciousness, which is undivided and full of the power of the word or primordial sound, became manifest.
Yes, so she's known as Tripuri. She's known as Chitta Akasha, the space of consciousness itself. She's identified with the seed mantra. Now it has no form, but for the sake of the story, she takes a form. Going on.
Abhavad Megagambhiri Abhavad Megagambhira Nisvano Gaganangane Vadan Vrishigana Kimvo Dhyata Tad Trutimihitam Matparanam Hikeshanchit Na Hiyetabhivanchitam. There was a voice deep as that of a cloud in the white firmament. Sages, why was I meditated upon by you? Tell quickly what is desired. For anyone solely devoted to me, no desire would be wanting.
So there's a lot implied here. She doesn't take a form, she's just a voice. You're not going to actually hear a voice, you might. But there's a knowing that comes from within. But in the end, how do we resolve all our doubts? The only thing you will ever know for sure is a hum, yourself. Everything else is just the play of mind, Chaitanya. And that is the great mystery. Ultimate truth is completely knowable. The world is what's mysterious. So what is the person of wisdom do? You could give up needing to figure the world out. Let it be with its mystery. And abide as yourself. You are Satyam, real. Going on.
Iti shrutva param vaणीं प्रणेमुर्मुनि पुंगवाः ब्रह्मादयोऽपि तदनु तुष्टुभुर्विविधैस्तवैः. Thus, having heard the supreme words, the best of the sages bowed down in salutation. After that, Brahma and others also pleased her with various praises.
Did we skip one?
No?
Read the English again of the shloka before the one we just did.
Yeah, so I'll just read them together. There was a voice deep as that of a cloud in the white firmament. Sages, why was I meditated upon you? Tell quickly what is desired. For anyone solely devoted to me, no desire would be wanting. Thus, having heard the supreme words, the best of the sages bowed down in salutation. After that, Brahma and others also pleased her with various praises.
Okay, I thought she'd answered the question and we missed it. Going on.
Atha prochur rishigana vidyam tam tripureshwarim namastubhyam maheshani Shri Vidye Tripureshwari. Then the groups of sages addressed her, the goddess Tripura, who is Vidya or knowledge. Salutation to you, the great ruler, goddess Tripura, and Sri Vidya.
Going on.
Asheshot padayitritvam. Asheshot padayitritvam. Thapayitri nijatmani. Vilapayitri sarvasya. Parameshwari te namah. Supreme Goddess, salutation to you. You are the creator of all, one who establishes them in your own self, and also one who causes everything to be absorbed in you.
So in the guise of a salutation, what is the nature of consciousness? Out of consciousness, by means of sankalpa, the whole world emanates. It rises, it continues, and is absorbed in that. And yet consciousness itself is kutusta. It is still. It's established. Does not move. Going on.
Anutana sarvadasi yato nasti janistava navatmika sadatvam vai yato nasti jaratava. You are always not new, since there is no birth for you. You are always of the nature of the new, since there is no old age for you.
Yes. So you are not born, you do not change, you do not die. Therefore, you are never new. Yet, you are now illuminating the changing world. And in that now, the changing world is ever new. So you are never new and ever new. It's a paradox. Going on.
Sarvasi sarvasarasi sarvajna sarvaharshini asarva sarvadasara sarvajna sarvaharshini. You are the all, you are the essence of all knowing and causing delight in all. Since there is no all or every in your natural state, you're also not all, not pervading all, not the essence of all, not knowing all, and not gladdening all.
Yes, so in the language of paradox, just like every element of the dream state, you are knowing it all, you are the author of it all, you pervade it all. Yet in reality, none of it's real. None of it has any substantive existence apart from you. It's all just pratibimba, like reflections in a mirror. And you never change, never touched. Going on. I think you're muted.
Devi Devi Bhuyo Namastubhyam Purastat Prishtato Picha Adhastat Urdhvato Urdvatah Parshve Sarvataste Namo Namah. Goddess, many salutations to you in front and behind, salutations from above and below, on the side and all around.
So again, this is just the poetry of salutations. And because consciousness is everywhere, there's no place to bow to. It's everywhere. Front and back, left, right, above, below, inside, outside, everywhere. Going on.
Ruhi yatte param rupam aishwaryam jnanameva cha phalam tatsadhanam mukhyam sadhakam siddhameva cha siddhestu paramam kashtham siddheshu tamameva cha devye tatkramato bruhi Bhuyastubhyam namo namah. Tell what is your higher and lower form or nature, power, knowledge. Tell what is your higher and lower form or nature, power, knowledge, its principal means and fruit, one who accomplishes it by practice, and also one who has attained his object, the highest limit of such accomplishment, and the best among those who are established in knowledge. Goddess, tell this in regular order. He salute you again.
So they ask, what is her essential nature? And what are the marks of the person who's attained the highest knowledge and abides in that? Let's see what she says.
There's a note. The note says the above verses contain 10 questions for which answers are sought. In the rest of the chapter, the goddess enlightens the sages on these points.
Okay, read the questions again.
Tell me, what is your higher and lower form or nature, power, knowledge, its principal means and fruit, one who accomplishes it by practice, and also one who has attained his object, the highest limit of such accomplishment, and the best among those who are established in knowledge.
Sounds like an exposition of the goal and the path. Going on.
Itya prishta mahavidya pravaktum upachakrame dayamana rishigane spashtartham paramam vachah. Thus asked, the great goddess, who is the highest knowledge, began to speak the supreme word, having clear meaning, feeling compassion for the group of sages.
So again, it's literary. You're not going to necessarily get it from God. You will get it from some guru. You will get it from the scriptures. And you will get it if you practice and renounce. One of the things I love about the life of the Buddha, he couldn't seem to find a guru. So he said, I'm going to sit under this tree and I'm going to empty out until I see what's real, what's true. You and I can do the same. All right, going on.
Shrunudhvam rishayah sarvam pravakshyami kramena tat amrutam hyagamam bodhe samudhritya dadami vah. Sages, listen, I shall tell you all that in regular order. I shall indeed give you the nectar, drawing it out from the ocean of the scriptures.
So again, she's saying that where does this truth originate? It is put forth, shruti, in the scriptures. And she's going to lay it out in a way that you and I can understand. Going on.
Yatra sarvam jagadidam darpana pratibimbavat utpannam cha sthitam leenam sarvesham bhasate sada yadeva jagadakaram bhasate viditatmanam yadyoginam nirvikalpam vibhatyatmani kevalam gambhirastimitam modhi gambhirastimitam bodhi iva nischala bhasanam yatsu bhaktaihi tishaya pritya kaitava yatsu bhaktairatish pritya kaitava varjanat swabhavasya swarasato nyatvapi swadvayam padam vibheda bhavamahritya sevatye सेव्यते त्यन्ततत्परैः अक्षान्तकरणादीनां प्राणसूत्रं यदान्तरं यद्मानेन किं यद्मा यद् यदभानेन किञ्चित् स्यात् यच्छास्त्रैरभिलक्षितं लक्षितं परासा प्रतिभा देव्याः परं रूपं ममेरितिम् where where this entire world appears to everyone always like the reflection in a mirror as a risen, existing, and dissolved, which alone appears in the form of the world to those not knowing the self, which shines solely in their own selves, free from thought constructs, for yogins appearing steadily like a deep and calm ocean, which is worshipped by good devotees, extremely devoted to it, with very great love, through renouncing the deceit of their nature and assuming the idea of differences, though having known from their own taste or experience their non-dual state, which is the inner thread of life of the sense organs and the mind, without the appearance of which nothing would exist, and which is defined by the scriptures. That supreme light is said to be the highest form of the goddess that is me.
So this is very dense. So what is the goddess? What is her supreme form? Consciousness, which is one without a second. By its own free will, imagines this world of name and form. Like pratibimba, like an image in a mirror. The ground is never touched. The names and forms are nothing but consciousness appearing as the world. Those in ignorance don't see it. They do not know. They cannot apprehend the substratum, the background consciousness. So they take the names and forms as real. But men and women of wisdom, knowing the self, watch the hologram, watch the light show, knowing that the body, mind, intellect out from which they peep at the world is just another name and form in the light show. That there's a divine intelligence that's activating, motivating, moving it all. Though they are seen to act in this world in various ways, it never touches them. It never touches them. Next verse.
ब्रह्मांड नामनेकानां बहिरुत्थे सुधां बुधौ मणिद्वीपे नीपवने चिन्तामणि सुमन्दिरे पञ्चब्रह्ममये मञ्चे रूपं त्रैपुरसुन्दरम् अनादिं मिथुनं यत्तद् पराख्यं ऋषीश्वराः best of sages, that which is outside and above innumerable universes in the ocean of nectar in the island of gems, in a forest of kadamba trees, within a mansion made of wish-fulfilling gems, on a throne consisting of the five divinities, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Ishvara being the four legs of the throne, and Sadashiva being the seat. The form which is beautiful within the three cities, the beginningless pair of Kameshvara, Kameshvari, is called the Inferior One.
So this world, with all its splendor, up to and including all the celestial forms, here she says is the inferior one. What she means is the same thing as what Krishna says in Gita. This is my lower prakriti. This is Sa Guna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. If it has a beginning and an end, if it has any characteristics or qualities, if it has name, if it has form, most importantly, if it can be seen as an object, it is prakriti. It is kshetra, as Gita calls it, the field. It is anatman, in a sense, what Shankara says. It is sa guna brahman. Seen. It has a reality. The phenomenal world is, but what it is Brahman. What's unreal about it is when I think the names and forms have existence apart from consciousness. They have inherently joy-giving and misery-producing power. I'm other than that. All that's illusion. Then the context for that is consciousness itself. In Gita, Krishna will say, in one small part of my infinite being is the entire manifest universe, the entire cosmos. That infinite being is you. Very experience of I. What fools us is it's outside of time and space. It has no dimension. It's like saying, where was the context in which the Big Bang occurred? Where was the space, the time and space was in? Well, there wasn't anything. Time and space inflated. But what Scripture is saying, there is a context, is consciousness itself, which you experience as I. But it fools me because I don't realize its vastness, its endless nature. I have to quieten the mind and introvert the attention to investigate that before it becomes apparent. Going on.
is a note. The above verses describe the manner in which worshippers of the physical form of Tripura imagine her during the ritual worship. The allusion to the three cities indicates the highest form of Tripura as the one undivided consciousness pervading the three states of waking, dreaming, and sleep, unaffected by these transient states.
Yes. So I'm ever the knower of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. They do not touch me, I illumine them. Going on.
Tatha Sadashiveshano Vidhi Vishnu Trilochanaha Ganesha Skanda Dikpalaha Shaktayo Ganadevataha Yatu Dhana Suranaga Yakshakim Purushadayah Pujya Sarva Mama Tanuho Para Parikirtitaha Pujya Sarva Mama Tanuho Apara Parikirtitaha. So also Sadashiva, Ishana, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesha, Skanda, the guardians of the quarters like Indra, the powers Kumari, Lakshmi, and others, the group of divinities like Vasu and Rudra, inferior beings like evil spirits, celestial residents, Nagas, Yakshas, Kim Purushas, and others who may be worshipped are called my inferior forms. Note, some semi-divine and demonic beings mentioned in the end of the list may be worshipped by selfish or evil-minded persons to achieve their own ends.
So that I would say that's not really the point. The point is, it is not that which you worship here. In Gita, Krishna will say, in whatever way men approach me, so am I to them. All of us have a God of our understanding if we're in ignorance. So whatever form of divinity it is, high or low, if it's other than you, it is lower nature. How does the refrain in Ashtavakra Gita go? Aho aham, namo mahyam. Oh, I am. Prostrations to myself. Not a form. It's a wonderful, wonderful refrain at one part of Ashtavakra Gita. Aho aham, namo mahyam. Going on.
Mama Maya Vinudhastu Mamna Jananti Sarvatah Pujita Hameva Pujita Ahameva Pujita Hameva Sarvai Tadami Halanihitam Namatonya Kachidasti Pujyava Phaladaini. But those who are deluded by my Maya or elusive power do not know me completely. I alone, worshipped by all, give the desired fruit. Other than me, there is none who is to be worshipped or who grants the fruits.
Yes. So again in Gita, Krishna will say, Everyone is always worshiping me. They just don't know it, and frequently by the wrong means. What does he mean by that? If we go back to one of the basic ideas that we discuss, what I call the pleasure principle, if I'm in the state of ignorance, I will decide something is priya, dear. It can be a good glass of wine. It can be a car. It could be my wife or husband. It could be the God that I love. But in fact, it's my imagination. And when desire and object of desire become one, even when I've done the puja or the yajna to propitiate the God, the happiness that I experience is myself. Listen very carefully. In the beginning, the tradition says you need to avoid attachment to sensuous objects. Shankara says in his discussion on Vairagya, that desire to give up all attachments to enjoyments gained through the senses. Why? Because when I'm in that addictive relationship with the world, my mind believes that the stuff out there is where the juice is. Even the God I worship. And the truth is, I just use the medium to induce momentarily the state of the mind freed from its vikshepa shakti, its projecting power. It is a taste, a kiss of the bliss of the self. So even the heroin addict who's shooting up on the street is worshiping the goddess, the self, just by the wrong means. The person who goes to the symphony and hears the concert is worshiping the self, just through a medium. The person who goes to the temple and does puja is worshiping the self, thinking it's the god or goddess. The world is not bad. The world is shunyata. It's empty. We don't need to be afraid of worldly pleasure because there's no such thing as worldly pleasure. I just use the world to induce the state momentarily, free from craving. The mind has come home. Only the self is ananda. Only self. So, fools are always worshiping the goddess, worshiping the Lord, worshiping the self. They just don't know it. How? Through the pursuit of pleasure itself. The man of wisdom or the woman of wisdom knows where the juice is. Gets rid of the medium. Any thoughts on this?
I think, Jim, the whole effort and secret is in getting rid of the medium, right? Well, not
It's
getting
not
rid,
about
but
getting rid of the medium. It's seeing its vanity and futility.
right.
So let's use a gross example. Let's say there's the person who's the alcoholic. And in their ignorance, they've lost their job, they've lost their marriage, their kids aren't speaking to them, they're about to get evicted. And they go to a wise person and they say, if you had my problems, you drink too. The drink is my only friend. And the wise person says, well, actually, the cause of your suffering is your addiction to the alcohol. So what do they need to do? They need to have the courage, faith, to try giving it up. Now, in time, if they work a spiritual program and they stay clean, abstinent, the desire to drink will leave them. And then they reach a place of neutrality. You know, a person who's really understood this, they can go to a bar with friends and have a glass of Calistoga. They can walk down the wine section of the supermarket. They don't freak out. They just know, oh, that stuff's not good for me. It's poison for me. So also, the yogi's not afraid of the world, but through deep insight, he's understood the stupidity of thinking he can get happiness through the world. How does he understand that? By getting kicked in the teeth over and over again. Swamiji used to say, go after the world. And then he would laugh diabolically. He would say, let it kick you in the teeth. Let it drop you again and again. It's the only way to kill the ego. It's through hard knocks and disappointment that we develop mature vairagya. When we begin to see that it doesn't work. Now, you're a married guy. Most married couples go through this. If you have the conviction, I'll be happier if I change my wife. You ever tried to do that, Uday?
Negative.
Yeah. What happens to most guys who try to, men or women, who try to change their spouse?
Misery.
Yeah. Yeah. So you keep trying it and you keep suffering until you learn that doesn't work.
Mm.
That is mature vairagya. So if you go all the way back to the beginning of the book and go through that wonderful story of Hemaleka and Hemachyuta, all this is laid out. All this is laid out very clearly. So mature vairagya comes through insight. This is why when Shankara lays out the qualifications of a fit student, first is Viveka. What is Viveka? The firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real. The self is real. phenomenal world is mithya, illusion. This is known as discrimination between the real and the unreal. That builds our vairagya and desire to give up all attachments to sense objects and identification, no personal sense of self. It's through insight that I get through discrimination that I develop my vairagya. Now, the more vairagya I get, the subtler my mind gets. So my insight becomes clearer. They build on each other. Does that make it a little clearer?
Yes, Jim. Actually, my question was starting, it was building on the last part which you mentioned, which is that let's say that, the world has knocked you around a fair bit and you realize that there is no juice in the things that I have been pursuing. And over time, as you mentioned, you develop a sense of vairagya towards the world and you don't go out in the first place, right? So you're at the same time, you've taken it on faith and some very subtle intuition that the sort of storehouse of happiness is not out there, but yet the experience, for lack of a better word, is not that convincing or that deeply imbibed. So how does one make that part of the journey?
So you need to keep meditating. This is why abhyasa is coupled with vairagya.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you renounce the world and don't have any taste, even a little bit, of the bliss of the self, you
Right.
get very realistic.
Mm.
The world starts to taste like ashes. Abhyasa vairagya cha. It
Right.
will come, Uday. If you could. Are you meditating daily?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, some of us get rid of a whole lot of our attachments, but we hang on to a whole lot of aversions, meaning things continue to annoy us. If I'm annoyed, it means I've got some aversions I haven't dealt with.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They both have to go.
Right.
All right. Ganesh, how many more shlokas in this section?
Seems like a lot more.
How many?
Yeah. A lot. I don't know.
Okay, we'll
70, 80,
9
90.
o'clock. So we'll continue this next week. We'll continue this next week. Uday, if I don't properly understand your question, interrupt me. I don't want to go on for 5 minutes and answer the wrong question.
No, not at all.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namah. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.